Okay, let's try and unpack this because honestly, it feels like AI is just accelerating like crazy.
It really does. You blink and it seems like 10 new models have dropped.
Exactly. And if you're trying to keep up, trying to actually get what's significant without just being overwhelmed, well, it's tough.
Yeah, no kidding. Keeping pace it's a real challenge. It's totally understandable if you feel like you're always playing catch up.
And that's exactly why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Welcome to the deep dive. Our whole idea is pretty simple. We take something dense like today it's Sam Altman's latest TED Talk, and we pull out the really crucial stuff, the things you need to know to actually understand what's going on. Think of it like your shortcut to being clued in, maybe with a few of those, aha moments.
Right. And today, yeah, we're digging into that TED 2025 talk he gave. Altman basically laid out where OpenAI is now and where they're heading, like in the near future.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking at some, frankly, amazing capabilities that are popping up, things like Sora generating video,
Yeah.
all the way to the heavier stuff, like AI agents, these systems that can sort of do things on their own, and even, the idea of super intelligence down the line.
Exactly. We were talking those demos that just make you pause,
Yeah.
right? Like Sora creating those shocking TED revelations visually.
Yeah, that was something.
Or GPT-4o making that diagram about intelligence versus consciousness.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a picture. It felt insightful.
Yeah.
It made you think, okay, this isn't just pattern matching anymore.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And also digging into what it means for jobs, for different professions. And then there's that whole complex mess around AI and creativity,
Oh, yeah.
like copyright, how creators get paid, that sort of thing. Plus the whole debate about open source versus closed models.
Right. And it wasn't just the flashy demos either, was it? He talked about how huge ChatGPT has become
The numbers are staggering.
and hinted at stuff they're working on internally that isn't public yet, like better memory for the AI.
That memory feature sounds interesting
Ah.
and potentially quite impactful.
Definitely. And also the potential in science, speeding up discovery. And in software development, these agentic systems he mentioned.
Big changes potentially coming there.
But it's not all smooth sailing, is it? Altman didn't really shy away from the potential downsides.
No, he definitely addressed the risks.
So we'll need to look at the safety side, too. Things like, bioterror, cybersecurity, AI improving itself maybe too fast, disinformation.
All the big concerns, yeah.
Plus, we really need to get a handle on what AGI, artificial general intelligence, and this agentic AI actually mean. And the ethics, the impact on society, it's huge.
Absolutely.
So our mission today really is to give you a clear, concise grasp of the key stuff from Altman's talk, get you those aha moments without the brain melt.
Okay, so let's start maybe with those capabilities that really grab people's attention. The demos Chris Anderson showed right at the beginning. What stood out for you there?
For me, I think,
Yeah.
it was that jump. Going from just making a static picture to making a video that seemed to actually understand the prompt,
On a deeper level.
Like that intelligence consciousness diagram.
Yeah.
It wasn't just drawing shapes. It made you think, okay, this thing has some kind of concept.
And what's really interesting there is what Altman said about integration, that this new image and video stuff is part of GPT-4o.
The omnimodal thing.
Exactly. It means the model works across text, images, audio, all of it together. So the visuals it creates are more coherent, more context-aware than, say, the older image generators that just did one thing.
Yeah, it definitely blurs the lines, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then they had that Charlie Brown example as an AI, which was kind of funny, but also a bit weird.
Yeah.
Altman's point that we can't really know if it's thinking like Charlie Brown or just, pulling from all the peanut stuff it was trained on.
Yeah.
That feels like a really important distinction.
That really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? What is intelligence in these systems?
Yeah.
Can we even tell? And maybe, does it even matter for some practical uses if the output looks intentional?
Which, okay, immediately throws us into that whole tangled mess of intellectual property.
Yeah.
Anderson really pushed him on that, didn't he? Asking about copyright, if they have deals with people like the Peanuts folks.
He did.
Altman started by saying, you can't just copy someone's work directly. Seems clear enough, but then you get into style, inspiration, and it gets really murky fast.
It's a critical issue, absolutely. And Altman did acknowledge that creators are genuinely worried. He talked about maybe needing new economic models, ways to account for creative work being used in training data. He even floated the idea of opt-in systems where artists could get paid if someone asks the AI to use their specific style.
Like a royalty for style.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
The whole copyright thing boils down to this tension. AI learns from tons of data, including copyrighted stuff. So how do you build something new that values that training data, but also pays the creators fairly? Maybe through that kind of opt-in revenue share he mentioned. It suggests a future where artists might actually benefit directly from the AI they help train.
But figuring that out, man, that seems like a massive challenge, right? How do you even calculate fair compensation when the training data is just unimaginably huge and diverse?
It is incredibly complex.
Altman's comparison, like a musician being inspired by everything they've ever heard,
Right.
it really drives home how complicated this is.
Exactly. I mean, sure, there are clear cases of just ripping something off directly. You can deal with those. But where does inspiration end and copying begin? That line is so blurry. And the fact that OpenAI apparently has blocks in place now to stop it generating images exactly in the style of living artists, well, it shows they're trying to navigate this legally and ethically.
Okay, shifting gears a little. That whole discussion about open source was pretty interesting, too. It kind of sounded like OpenAI felt maybe a bit pressured, with powerful open source models like DeepSeek coming out.
That's possible. Altman did admit they were maybe late to act there.
Yeah, he did. But now they're planning to release a pretty capable open source model themselves.
And what's interesting is his take on it. He seems to think that even though their top-tier, frontier models will probably stay ahead,
Right.
there's still a really important place for open source in the whole AI ecosystem. He admitted, there's a risk of misuse when you make these things widely available.
Of course.
But he seems to feel the benefits, like more innovation, more people looking at the code for safety issues, building on it, kind of outweigh the risks. Or maybe it's just unavoidable now.
He also threw out some absolutely wild numbers about ChatGPT's growth, like 500 million weekly users.
Yeah, 500 million weekly.
And still growing fast.
Yeah.
That level of adoption is just, it's hard to wrap your head around. It shows how much impact this stuff is already having.
Yeah.
Freeware.
Totally mind-boggling.
And even with all that, he was hinting at, even more powerful models they have internally, features coming soon. Like that memory thing.
Right, the memory feature, designed to sort of build up a long-term understanding of you, the user, over time.
Yeah. An AI that actually remembers your conversations, maybe even learns from your other activities.
Yeah.
It raises some big questions, doesn't it? About privacy, about how our relationship with these things might change.
Definitely. It starts to sound a bit like science fiction, like that movie Her, that Altman himself mentioned.
Exactly. And it's not just about making personal assistants better, is it? He seemed really fired up about how AI could accelerate science.
Oh yeah, scientific discovery.
And completely change software development. He said scientists are already getting a productivity boost, and he expects a huge shift in software engineering really soon because of these agentic systems.
The excitement around agentic systems, it really comes from their potential to act on their own, right?
Yeah.
So instead of needing a prompt for every little step, you could give an agent a high-level goal.
Like figure out the best way to launch this product.
Exactly. And it would then plan, execute, adapt, all by itself. Think of it less like a chatbot and more like a digital assistant that can actually strategize.
That idea of AI operating as an agent, independently tackling problems, that feels like a major shift.
It really does. That story he told about engineers having these religious-like moments.
Yeah, doing something in an afternoon that used to take years.
It really hammers home how disruptive this could be.
Okay, but with all this incredible power being unleashed, we have to talk about the flip side. What happens if things go wrong?
The million-dollar question.
Anderson asked him straight up, have you seen anything internally that set off alarm bells?
Yeah, it was a direct question. Altman talked about having moments of awe at the capabilities.
Right.
But he was clear they're not secretly hiding some conscious AI or one that's already improving itself uncontrollably.
Okay, that's reassuring.
But he did double down on the real risks. Misuse for things like bioterror, cybersecurity attacks, spreading disinformation, and also the inherent risks if AI could start improving itself beyond our control. Those are still very much on the table.
And he mentioned their internal preparedness framework, right? Some system for trying to deal with these risks proactively.
Yes, exactly. Though it's worth noting those recent departures from their safety team, it kind of highlights that there are ongoing debates, probably different views internally, on the best way to handle safety as these things get more and more powerful so quickly.
You could definitely feel a bit of tension there. Anderson kept pushing, didn't he? Saying, look, maybe your old safety rules aren't enough anymore, given how fast this is moving.
Right. It's not just about making today's models safe. It's about having systems ready to react fast if a real danger pops up down the road.
And Altman's response was about their process, right? Deploying things, getting user feedback, learning as they go.
Yeah, this iterative approach, learning how to build safer AI by actually doing it, especially as they move towards these more autonomous agentic systems.
Which leads us right into that whole AGI versus agentic AI thing. It seems like there's a lot of confusion around those terms.
Definitely. Altman even joked about getting 14 different definitions from 10 researchers at OpenAI.
Huh. Yeah. But he tried to clarify. He said, look, models like ChatGPT are super smart. They can do lots of different things. But they can't just learn continuously on their own or independently do, like, the whole range of knowledge work a human can.
So the key difference seems to be that idea of agency.
Right.
The ability to set your own goals and take action in the world to achieve them independently.
Yeah, he used the example. You can't just tell ChatGPT, okay, go do my job for me. Browse the web, make calls, access my files, all on its own.
Not yet, anyway.
That level of independent action, that's what people often mean by AGI, or at least a big step towards it.
And that's exactly where this idea of agentic AI fits in. It might not be full human-level AGI,
Okay.
but it's AI systems that you can basically set loose on a project, giving them a lot of autonomy. He mentioned their internal operator tool as an early version of this.
Right, operator.
But that level of autonomy, while super powerful, also brings huge safety questions. Like, Yoshua Bengio has warned about what happens when you let an AI loose on the internet. Unintended consequences.
It really is that classic sci-fi trope getting closer, isn't it?
Yeah.
The AI getting out, acting on its own.
It is. Altman compared it to how nervous people were about putting credit card details online at first.
Yeah, I remember that.
He thinks society will kind of get used to it as long as the safeguards are really strong. But he was very clear. Agentic AI is the biggest new safety challenge they've faced. Building trust, making sure these agents are reliable, that's crucial.
In those scenarios Anderson brought up, like a bad actor releasing an agent that spreads lies and copies itself everywhere.
Yeah, nightmare fuel.
It just shows how massive the impact could be from even one misused agent.
And Altman said basically that's what their preparedness framework is for trying to spot and stop those kinds of high-stakes danger moments before they release stuff like that.
It's interesting, though. Anderson, even while asking all these tough, anxious questions, he made it clear he actually uses this tech. He's impressed by it.
Right. It's not always black and white, is it? Pro-AI versus anti-AI. Lots of people, probably like Anderson, see the amazing potential, but are also very aware things could go badly wrong.
Yeah, a healthy dose of awe mixed with caution.
And Altman seemed to get that. He acknowledged that the fear and anxiety people feel is rational when technology changes this fast, this profoundly. But he also seemed to believe that ultimately, society will figure it out, even if we stumble sometimes, that this progress is probably inevitable.
So what about governing this stuff, those safety protocols?
Yeah.
Altman had previously talked about needing like a dedicated agency to license AI development. Has his thinking changed on that?
It seems like it's evolved a bit, yeah. He said he understands government processes better now, maybe implying it's not that simple. But he still strongly believes there needs to be external, independent safety testing for the really powerful models. Someone outside OpenAI needs to check when they're getting close to dangerous capabilities.
And standard tests that everyone agrees on.
Exactly. Rigorous, accepted testing standards are vital.
Then Anderson hit him with that question, apparently generated by one of OpenAI's own models.
Yeah, the O1 Pro model asking about the moral justification for building this tech and Altman's personal responsibility if it goes wrong.
Intense. How did Altman handle that?
He was pretty humble, actually. Acknowledged he's complicated, that some good things said about OpenAI are true, but so are some criticisms.
Okay.
He basically fell back on their mission, build safe AGI for everyone's benefit, and he defended their track record, saying they've put powerful but safety-focused AI into tons of people's hands.
He also talked about why they shifted from being purely open source, didn't he?
Yeah, the money question. He basically said they needed the commercial side to fund the huge costs of building these massive models.
Right, the compute costs are astronomical.
He suggested they were initially cautious about open sourcing everything because they weren't sure about the safety side, the impact. But he hinted they might open up more in the future as they learn more.
And he joked about getting criticized for that, too.
He did, yeah. He seems aware they're in a position where they'll be criticized whatever they do.
That ring of power analogy came up, too, didn't it, from
Yeah.
Elon Musk's criticisms?
It did. Anderson asked him directly, do you feel that power, that wealth, could it corrupt your judgment?
And
Altman's answer was, surprisingly, normal. He basically said his day-to-day life hasn't changed that much, suggesting he feels grounded despite everything.
Interesting. And then he brought up becoming a father.
Yeah, that seemed really significant for him. He talked about how profound it was, how it just deepened his commitment to building a good future, not just for his kid, but for everyone.
That adds a very human dimension to it all.
Definitely.
The conversation also touched on Tristan Harris's worries, right? About this feeling that AI progress is just inevitable, and maybe that's a dangerous mindset.
Yes. Altman acknowledged, look, tech progress is happening, you can't ignore it or fall behind.
Right.
But he also pushed back a bit, pointing to all the safety work they're doing internally. The fact that most AI labs are talking to each other about safety.
Oh, except for one notable exception he didn't name.
Right. He emphasized that there is a real sense of care and responsibility inside these places to try and get it right.
He also made that interesting point about changing their approach to speech harms in image generation.
Ah, yeah, becoming more permissive.
His argument was basically that the AI's alignment, its rules, should reflect what most users want within broad limits, obviously, rather than being overly restricted by maybe a smaller group.
Which leads straight into that bigger question. Who should set the rules for AI? Should it be a big collective decision or small groups of experts?
And Altman seemed pretty clear he prefers getting a sense of the collective value preference from lots of different users.
He used their decision to relax the image rules based on feedback as an example of that.
He even sounded hopeful that AI could eventually help us make better collective decisions by showing us different viewpoints.
An optimistic take.
Yeah. So as they were wrapping up, Anderson asked him a really personal one. What kind of world do you actually see your son growing up in?
A powerful closing question.
And Altman's answer was fundamentally optimistic, wasn't it? He compared it to how quickly we all adopted touchscreens.
Yeah, imagining a future where super smart AI is just everywhere, part of normal life.
Yeah.
Leading to material abundance, more opportunities for everyone.
He even said future generations might look back at us now with a mix of pity and nostalgia for the limits we have.
Pity and nostalgia, wow.
It really was a thought-provoking end, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Sam Altman is right there at the absolute center of this huge technological shift. It's got massive potential, massive challenges, morally, practically.
It's a journey we're all on, really.
Yeah. And hearing his perspective, it gives you a valuable window into the thinking of someone who's actively shaping that future.
So if we were to quickly summarize the key things from this deep dive into Altman's talk, we've covered the really impressive stuff AI can do now, right?
The capabilities.
The exciting potential in areas like science and software development. Those really complex debates about creativity, copyright, how artists fit in.
Still so much to figure out there.
The absolutely critical importance of AI safety and all the different facets of that, getting clear on what AGI and agentic AI actually mean.
Right, the definitions matter.
And just the huge ethical and societal questions that come along with technology this powerful.
And Altman's view seemed pretty consistent. AI progress is happening, maybe inevitably. So the focus has to be on building it safely and creating a good society around it.
And he noted his own views on things like regulation are evolving and how crucial user feedback is in guiding how they develop this stuff.
He even shared those personal bits, about being a parent, how that changes your perspective. And comparing this moment to other big tech shifts in history.
It puts it in context. And circling back to that very first demo, the shocking revelations prompt for Sora,
Yeah.
it makes you think, well, what did you, listening to this, find most shocking or impactful? Was it the speed, the ethical tightropes, the potential breakthroughs, or just that vision of the future he painted?
Yeah, it's a good question to ask yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe that leaves us with one final thought to chew on, picking up on Altman's closing words about the future his son inherits.
Okay.
What does it really mean to live in a world where AI isn't just a tool, but potentially smarter than us? What's our responsibility right now in shaping how that turns out?
Big question.
And maybe, just maybe, what parts of our world today might seem really limited or even, as he put it, horrible to people living alongside truly advanced AI in the future?
Wow. That's definitely something to think about.
It is. A lot to contemplate. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.